How a bike looks is a massive part of why we buy them. You've got to like the style of the machine as well as how it rides. But thing is, looks are subjective, and so I put this one to a vote. And so here we go with your 15 best looking bikes on the market in 2025. At 15, we'll kick off with an excellent starting point with the Triumph T100 and T120, which I've combined because they look so similar. These two might not be the most original or avant-garde in the looks department, but what they are is beautifully designed retros that basically set the standard for the rest of the retro market. All the details are there with the spoke wheels with an oversized front, the steel cradle frame, the classic retro tank, and lots of neat little touches from Triumph, like the way they've hidden the radiator and cap between the frame, and the cooling fins and carbs to give the internally modern engine an externally classic look. I've actually just picked up a T120 Black myself, and the looks were a huge factor, as well as the peachy, torquey engine, which also makes it a real pleasure to ride. Next up, we got something a little more peppy with the updated 2025 versions of BMW's S1000R Naked and M1000R Super Naked. A year or two back, I might have disagreed on this one, but actually they've made a couple of big improvements for the new model year, which I think now mean the looks actually match the performance. One is the new twin headlight, which replaces the single headlight of the previous generation, which I did think looked a little bit too generic. This one gives it a more distinctive front end and pulls it more so in line with the family of RR sports bikes, which also get twin LEDs up front. The other factor is this new paint job for the standard S1000R, which is called Blue Fire and Mugello Yellow, and while admittedly it's another 410 quid over the standard black bike, well, having seen it in the flesh at a couple of shows recently, it really does make for a fantastic looking bike that I think is the right balance of vibrant but not too garish. Back to the retros though, and there are quite a few on this list, as you might expect, as they're generally the more aesthetically focused designs, and this one comes from Yamaha with their XSR900. Specifically, we had a lot of mentions for the GP version, which gets a half fairing for a bit of an 80s or early 90s race bike look, especially in the Marlboro-inspired red and white paint job. There's also a stealthy black version which I rather like as well, and you can fit it with a couple of accessories to improve the looks even further. One would be the side-slung Akropovich exhaust system, which I think looks way more appropriate for the era as opposed to the standard one, which is down under the belly. Then the other one is the fairing lowers to give you a full fairing look, which I do think helps to finish it off quite nicely. If we're talking retro though, well, they don't come much more old school than this, with the new for 2025 Classic 650 from Royal Enfield, which takes their proven 650 twin platform and really does ramp up that heritage influence. As standard, it comes with the single seat, the long mudguards, the fork shrouds and the headlight nacelle, all of which combine for a very similar aesthetic to something like their 500 twin from the 1950s. The only thing that really gives it away is the disc brakes, and I've got to say, I really like the paint jobs on this one with a punchy teal, a white and deep red, or perhaps the best of the bunch, the signature Enfield black, gold and chrome. Next up, we've got the MV Agusta Superveloce 1000, and honestly I was possibly expecting this one to be a little bit higher up the list, with it being, in my opinion, one of the most exciting looking motorcycles ever designed. It basically takes the same semi-retro design principles of the 800 version of the Superveloce which came before it, but then puts it on steroids with the 1000cc inline 4 of their Brutale 1000 with a beefed up, aggressive styling package to match. There are beautiful details everywhere you look on this bike, from the wheel design to the sweeping bodywork to the quad exit exhaust, and it's all finished off in that iconic red and silver that's graced many an MV over the years. Perhaps it's the fact that so few of us will ever even get close to owning one that means it doesn't place higher, with an absolutely eye-watering starting price of £61,400. Now, before we get onto the next bike, I just want to say a huge thanks to Flying Eyes for supporting the channel and making videos like this one possible. Flying Eyes make these awesome specs which are made from a special material called resilamide, and that means they can make them super flexible and also extremely durable. They're so thin at the arms that they slip easily into your lid, and the flexibility means they wrap comfortably around the contours of your cranium, which reduces pressure and means you won't get those distracting headaches that can come with regular frames and sunglasses, especially on longer rides. Specifically, I'm wearing their Ninox Narrow, which has a bit of a classic round shape, but they also offer a wide range of shapes and sizes to suit all tastes and also sizes of loaf. So do check out the link down in the description below to find out more and to see their full lineup. And down there, you'll also find a discount code specifically for our viewers. So once again, a massive thanks to Flying Eyes for their support. And with that, we move into the top 10 with the humble Honda GB350S. You might not be expecting a £3,949 bike to outrank one that costs over 60 grand, but it has to be said that Honda have definitely got something right about the looks on this one. For me, it's like a more affordable, small capacity alternative to the Bonnevilles, with a 19-inch front wheel, the air-cooled engine and the steel cradle frame, all giving it the right stance and shape. The details are impressive too, especially for the price, with neat finishing panels here and there, some contrast stitching on the saddle, and premium looking badges, a fuel cap and paint on the tank. So look, it may not be the quickest bike on the list at just 20 horsepower peak, but if you're happy to take it easy and you want to do so in style, then this is certainly a very good way to do it. Moving on though to Triumph again, and in 9th we've got their Street 77765, which is a staple of the middleweight sporty naked category. Triumph almost always do a good job on styling, and this one's no different, with an angular, aggressive look that really suits the intended style of riding. The only potential downside for some of you seems to be the twin headlights, which always get a bit of a mixed reaction. But thing is, twin headlights are a signature feature across Triumph's triple lineup over the years, from the Speed Triple to the Tigers to the Rocket 3 as well, and so it's totally understandable that they want to continue this recognizable design feature. Next up, we've got the V100 Mandello from Moto Guzzi, which you might be surprised to learn isn't their highest entry on the list, but at number 8 I do think it's very much a deserved inclusion. This bike is built around their new liquid-cooled V-twin, which offers much more modern performance of course than their typically air-cooled engines, but still maintains that transverse mounting which gives a Guzzi its own feel as well as part of the distinctive look. For me, the rest of the bike is absolutely stunning too, with a single-sided swing arm showing off those intricate wheels, jet fighter inspired twin taillights, a Mandello Eagle DRL set into the headlight, and flowing bodywork that runs from nose to tail. My favourite over the years has probably been the green and silver finish inspired by the Guzzis of yesteryear, but quite honestly, I'd be happy riding one in absolutely any colour. At number 7, with a healthy tally of votes, it's the Kawasaki Z900RS Retro. This bike takes its inspiration from their iconic Z1 of the 1970s and applies it to their more modern Z900 naked platform for a very visually pleasing outcome. The teardrop tank, single round headlight and flicked up tail all pay homage, and I don't think I've met a single biker who doesn't like how this bike looks. The only thing that does seem to split opinion is the new SE edition, which gets a bunch of upgrades like the Brembo brakes and Olin shock, but also a matte black and grey paint job which does look a little bit stealth. Maybe too stealthy for some of you, with a lot of you preferring the glossy retro finishes of the standard bike, and so I'd love to know where you come down on this one down in the comments below. Ducati's Panigale lineup recently got a huge refresh, dropping some of the signature design features like the single-sided swing arm that made the previous generation, I think, one of the most desirable sports bikes on the market. I think I'd agree with a lot of you that the new Panigale V4 doesn't quite have the same visual appeal, but then the slimmer, svelter Panigale V2 did get a substantial number of votes. I think I'm on board with this one as well. There's something about the narrower lines that give it more pleasing proportions, and the twin underseat exhausts add a little bit of extra flair to the tail. We're riding this one in a couple of weeks, so if you've not already and you want to see that review as soon as it goes live, then I'd massively appreciate you hitting subscribe. Into the top 5 we go, and Moto Guzzi are back again, this time with their long-standing retro, the V7. Now this one comes in a whole bunch of flavors, from the standard V7 Stone to the racy V7 Stone Corsa to the spoke-wheeled V7 Special, all of them getting the same signature features of the air-cooled V-twin and the long and large fuel tank. My pick of the bunch though would be the new for 2025 V7 Sport, which gets an upgraded chassis with twin discs and a chunkier upside-down fork. I think the extra sportiness at the front end makes it look that bit more desirable, and you've also got the option of this pop-in lime green paint job, which really does do the trick as well. My personal pick though of the best looking new bike for 2025 would be this one, even if it wasn't yours, the Ducati XDiavel V4. It builds upon the regular Diavel V4 power cruiser and gives it the XDiavel treatment with a slightly more relaxed riding position with forward foot controls. There are some visual differences though as well, like the revised bodywork, its own wheel design, new lighting shapes front and rear, and for me, it's for the better, with a nicer overall look, I think, than the standard Diavel V4. On top of that though, I absolutely love this deep red paint job, which has more of a metallic sheen to it than the regular flat Ducati red. And so all in, I think Ducati have absolutely nailed this one. Number 3 though definitely came as a bit of a surprise with this, the Triumph Bobber, which hasn't been updated much since it was introduced a good few years back. It does seem as though they got something very right about it though, with plenty of fans still out there and giving it a vote. The chunky tyres, Bonneville engine and tank, the floating solo seat do give it a very desirable silhouette, and you've also got the Triumph details and finish when you do get up close. For 2025 they've also brought back the TFC version, or Triumph Factory Custom, which for an extra few grand gives you the best of the best in terms of componentry, with Öhlins suspension, Brembo brakes and an Akropovich exhaust system. I think though it also has a positive effect on the looks, and so this TFC model is definitely one to look at if you want a bobber that looks that little bit more special. Number 2 comes from BMW with their recently announced R12S, which is built upon the R1290 Retro, but with a bit of a half fairing for a cafe racer look, and also this stunning orange and silver fade paint job with the red pinstripes, which references back to the sporty boxer-powered BMWs of yesteryear. Then you've got the works in terms of their Option 719 billet finishing kit, and all in, I think it makes for probably the best looking bike that they've made in recent memory. Unfortunately, the price for this one is pretty steep at over 18 grand, but with looks this good, I don't expect they're going to have much problem selling them. Top of the list though, and a direct competitor for the BMW, is the Speed Twin 1200 from Triumph. What you've got here is the Bonneville 1200 platform, but made sporty, with the 17-inch wheels front and rear, the sticky tyres, decent suspension and brakes, and a bit of a forward slant to it, which does make it look a bit more aggressive. I absolutely get why people like this one. It's got a bit of that sporty custom retro vibe right out of the factory, and on top of that, it is a fantastic bike to ride too. Some of you in the poll bemoaned the 2025 switch over to a digital dash instead of the previous gen's twin analog clocks, and I agree the cockpit doesn't look quite as good, but otherwise it's a great looking bike, especially in the RS spec, and so I think a deserving winner of this poll. As always though, I'd love to know your pick of the bunch, so do let us know down in the comments below, and I'll also leave our recent list of the most expensive bikes on the market on the screen now, so you can give it a click and give it a watch if you haven't already. Hit subscribe for more of the latest motorcycle news and reviews right here on MOTOBOB. A massive thanks for watching today, and we'll see you in the next video.